Deputy Jones, we are on agenda item 11, the monthly budget report. I'm sorry to interrupt dinner. You could have brought it with you. So whenever, let me see if I can get you a mic. I think Kelsey will get you a mic. Thank you.
Yeah, Chair Hymas, Deputy Superintendent of Operations Scott Jones with the monthly budget report. This monthly budget report is required in your bylaws. I do want to thank you, sir, personally for carrying on the tradition of making the monthly budget report the item right before my next meal. So thank you, sir. Proceeding with the monthly budget report, the Utah State Board of Education is financially solvent. We're able to meet all of our known obligations and commitments. Prior to this meeting, a few months ago, we'd gone to a new format, more interactive. As was stated earlier, this particular report is meant to be more user-friendly in the sense that both you and the public can drill down, or, for lack of a better term, and really get into the details of expenditures across all of our sections and all of our programs. Also, last month, I had notified you as an extension of the memorandum of understanding with the State Charter School Board that they would be reporting on their budget going forward starting this month. They had asked for an additional month to get ready for that. They don't quite have their staff member that has access to FiNet yet. So I told them that as a demonstration for existing and new board member, or for new board members, will click on the State Charter School Board section. It's a little too far away for me to see, so I can't see how far down it is. But if you'll click on that, I just want to make sure that on the record that based on code and a combination of the MOU and some rules related to the authorizer that is the State Charter School Board, when I give you my attestation, I can only attest for the State Charter School Board in the sense that we recognize that they're not over budget and that they haven't expended any funds unallowably or outside of a particular line item. That's the extent of the attestation I can give for them. That's why I think going forward and hopefully starting next month, or their individual. Deborah told me that they have a meeting next week where it'll help get that person or their staff member access to FiNet, and then they'll be able to pick this up. So I apologize. We were really trying to push for that to them. It's not their fault. So I'm sure that they'll follow up and we'll get to what right is, and they'll be able to provide their report. Anyway, as you click on that, or it was clicked on that, you can see where they're at with their expenditures. Type thing. So I'm confident that they haven't, in accordance with the MOU or the agreement that we have with them, that they are currently within budget and their expenditures are all allowable to date. So, Chair Hymas, subject to any questions or concerns by board members, I can move on to the discretionary funds report update. Oh, yes.
I have a question from Vice Chair Hart.
That is up to you. My understanding was that, yes, that's the direction that you wanted to go, but the board can decide that. If it satisfies you that what I gave you as far as, what our understanding is of the extent of the agreement, we can go that direction too. Maybe they come quarterly, those types of things. I can follow up with leadership on that. And then, we can let them know. First and foremost, though, we should wait until they do have their staff member that has access to FiNet. FiNet, by the way, FiNet is the financial system that we use, that the board uses for all of our budgetary actions, procedures, expenditures, tracking, everything. This report is drawn right out of, this report is drawn right out of it. So, thank you for the question, Vice Chair, through the chair.
Thank you. I don't see any others, so let's continue.
If we could go to the discretionary funds report real quick. To orient new board members to this important report, it is an information item. Your discretionary funds are a result of year-end close activities that result in what we call carry forward balances. So these balances that you see in the upper right-hand corner were a result of closure activities resulting in excess funds, in particular, basically pots of money. State funds, FML stands for Federal Mineral Lease Funds, land exchange, and you can see that on the left of the upper right quadrant in there. So you see the beginning balances and you see how much we have remaining, which is only about $150,000. That's actually a good thing, because as we enter the legislative session, we are the only agency, or one of maybe two agencies, that are allowed by law to have what's called non-lapsing balances, meaning that when we're sent money, that we don't have to return that money. The money, so if we budget, say it's a 5-year contract or something like that, every year, unlike other agencies within the state, we're not subject by law to immediately return that money. However, the legislature can always, this is for lack of another better term, sweep money that is not committed or encumbered by an obligating document, such as a contract, or such as payroll activities, or such as your commitment of your discretionary funds resulting from year-end closure activities and excess balances, which you see in the main body of this report. These are projects or items that were identified by board members, yes, by board members, and then ratified by the entire board for you to pursue, or for us as staff to support you in pursuing in the interest of public education. And appropriately, state funds are unrestricted, so no problem there. Federal mineral lease funds have to be used for research and development. So your staff, our staff, my staff, always make sure that whatever projects you decide you want to use your money for, we're using allowable funds for that. But I know there's some interest in the discretionary funds and the balances in them. If you could go back up to the right-hand quadrant, the reason why I bring up the process or related to non-lapsing balances and the potential for sweeping of funds is, as it stands right now, the legislature can sweep funds that are obligated and all that, but basically at risk right now is only about $158,000. We don't spend money just to spend money. We do a very, very good job, and I'm not doing this for, I really, it's important what you think about this, but I get all the time accolades or things from legislators and think that the board does a really good job of going through the processes to make sure that money is spent well. So just passing that on to you. So that concludes my update or briefing on the monthly budget report as a whole, finishing with the discretionary funds report at your direction, sir.
So, can you, if this requires a long answer, then I'd rather just you address it later. But can you speak to the requirement for zero-based budgeting, or the rule that was, are we subject to that?
Not by Chair, not by law. There's nothing in the law that I'm aware of, and you can check with Deborah and see if she's shaking her head north and south or east or west. If there's no law, right, Deborah, that we are required to start the process with zero-based budgeting. It has been a practice or a best practice in the past by the legislature, so you're bound to hear some legislators ask, well, do you start with a zero-based budget? And without a long answer, so the answer is no. There's no, law or rule that requires us to start with zero-based budgeting. Basically, the base budget is administered or ran by the LFA with input from us. They send us a base budget bill for public education. Deborah does the crosswalk with them, makes sure that everything's aligned. The base budget is basically the prior year's budget, right? With some changes that might be made or some modifications, but that's basically the process that is taken. Then your requests are the requests for new money above the base budget. So does that answer Board or Vice Chair Hart's questions,
Well,
Chair Hymas?
It answers the question, are we required to do it? I guess required and should and are there any advantages to it are separate questions. Would it be to our advantage to look in that direction, whether or not, I can't wrap my head around zero-based in the way that that money flows through us, like,
Right.
that's hard for me to wrap my head around. But is that something that would be considered perhaps good hygiene of a budget to, or some sort of internal control, or like, is that something we should look at in the future doing, or?
Ye- Yes. So, Chair, I recommend that we do look at that. We can do that through the Finance Committee. I'm very proficient or efficient with the process that is zero-based budgeting, as is Deborah, as is our staff. So we could do that. I think the juice is worth the squeeze at this point, especially when later today or tomorrow, you're going to get the revenue update coming out of EAC, and then you can see why it might be beneficial that we first orient you to the process that is zero-based budgeting, and then perhaps, train on it or look at it ahead of next year's process, where right out of the session, we could start both the process of identifying funding requests and taking a zero-based budgeting approach in cooperation with the legislature and the governor's office, and ahead of your submissions.
Last question, I'm not trying to belabor. Is it true that it is something that most, if not all other state agencies do operate out of a zero-based budgeting framework, or?
So I'm not aware, I'm not for certain that they do it or are required to do it every year. I am aware that some years it has happened or occurred. In some of my peers and the other state agencies have mentioned it before, but I'm not sure if all the state agencies, like in the executive branch, do it, or it's done just within like the GOPB offices, or not at all. But it has been done before, yes.
Okay. And then, this truly is the last question. If we were interested in having that discussion about whether or not the board wanted to move forward with that, and what kind of resources that would require and what kind of time, how would, is that something that would require, to me, it feels like, with a very basic understanding, that if we are looking at our return on investment with where we put our money, it might be a good thing to do to really look at that zero-based concept to understand the lay of the land, so to speak.
Right.
Is that something that would happen in the normal course of the work that you do in your area in financial ops, or would it be a special project that requires more time and effort, and a small team of people, or what does that entail? Or is that just saying, please run these analyses for us?
Right. So there is zero-based budgeting is a process. Based on the way that we're established, though, I don't think it would take much beyond what we do right now to make that an integral part of our overall budget processes. Might mean some extra staff time here or there, but I think that it's supportable, especially since we're aligned so well in the systems now. Now, if you were to ask me that question 6, 7, 8 years ago, I would have said, yes, it's definitely going to take a lot better systems and a lot more personnel. But now we're in a good position where if the board wants to go that direction and every year take a zero-based budgeting approach, we can start that process with some impact, but not anything that would either negate or eliminate something else that we're required to do.
Okay, thanks for that.
That's all I have, sir.
Thank you, Deputy Jones.
Yes, sir.
In full transparency, this was brought up by a legislature, right? Asking if we did
Yes.
this.
Oh, that's right, yes.
And so
Yeah.
I think these questions are relevant as the legislature is asking these questions. We want to be prepared in these areas as well to say, no, we don't do that. We're not required to do it, but if we were, here's what we could do. So anyway, I appreciate the questions. Thank you, Deputy Jones. I don't see any other questions. So